Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 494 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's show, Phoebe. That's it. I just liked Phoebe. I really enjoyed talking to her. I think you're going to enjoy listening to her. Isn't that easy? It's simple. Phoebe's a type 1. She's had diabetes for a while. She's moved all over the country. Her dad is super interesting. Please listen to this episode. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. This episode came within a hair's breadth of being called Possum Trot. Anyway, Smelly Cat was also in there, but for reasons that will not be evident while you're listening to most of you. Nevertheless, this is Phoebe. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Please go to contournext.com/juicebox. It is the most comprehensive website about the Contour Next One that you'll ever find. I mean, that seems obvious, but seriously, there's a ton of stuff there. The meter is incredibly accurate, rather affordable, and it has second chance test strips. It's worth your time to look into. contournext.com/juicebox. The episode is also sponsored by the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. Summer is here, people. It is time to swim and frolic, and you'd love to do it with an Omnipod. Trust me. It is tubeless. It does not encumber you while you're doing such things, and you do not have to disconnect to go into water. That's a big deal. A really, really big deal. You may be eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash. Find out. Omnipod.com/juicebox.
Hi, my name is Phoebe. I live in Livermore, California. It's a town maybe about an hour east of San Francisco. But I'm from the East Coast, so it's weird being in California for me still. And I have been a type 1 diabetic for, gotta do math, 27 years.
Why did you pick this time if you're from California? It's so early in the morning.
Because I have Fridays off, and I also use Friday as chore day. So by the time we're done, all of the grocery stores will be starting to open, and I can go before everyone else goes.
Wait a minute. How old are you? Why are you so well planned out?
I blame my husband. I'm 30.
Wait, you blame? Does he hit you if you don't have groceries?
No.
No? Can he hear this? She just looked over her shoulder.
Goodbye.
She just looked over her shoulder. Make a sign if you're scared. And she needs me to call 911. No. Seriously.
When we first moved in together and we went grocery shopping together, we would go like the second the grocery store opens, we're like in the grocery store. And I've just gotten used to that. And now when I go to the grocery store, when there's, a million people, I'm like, ugh. So no one knows grocery store etiquette. Why am I dealing with people in a parking lot? This is the worst.
Phoebe, are you telling me that you have rules that are so specific around grocery store shopping that if you don't show up when no one's there, it ruins the experience for you?
It does now, actually. Yes. I used to not care, but my bandwidth for dealing with other people in a grocery store just significantly decreased over time.
That's
no, I've been up. I've already started laundry. Instead of doing a podcast, I would probably have cleaned all the bathrooms. Fridays are my chore days. And yeah, by the time I would get home, the only thing would be left is fold laundry and mop the floors.
That's hilarious. Let me see something here. I was going to say, I'm a little hung up here. I was going to say that when I talk to people on the phone, I can't sit down and do it. So I'm a huge proponent of cleaning toilets while I'm on the phone. So I find myself saying a lot, hey, I'm about to flush a
I'm
toilet.
not going to the bathroom.
Then I have to explain that I enjoy, by the way, enjoy cleaning toilets while I'm on the phone is an incorrect statement. I just feel like it's a good use of time that would otherwise be
It's a better
wasted.
use of time. Yeah. When I'm on like a conference call that I don't have to be a very active member, that's usually when I'll like sweep the floors, do the kitty litter, stuff like that.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So I guess I want to understand how you got to California from the East Coast.
Oh gosh. So, well, let me back it up to when I graduated from college. Since graduating college, I've lived in Baton Rouge, Kentucky, North Carolina, New Jersey, the Philly area, Alexandria, Virginia, and now California.
Because
God,
you're running from the law?
A lot of it was job related.
Okay.
So I got my first job in a chemical plant in Baton Rouge, and then the project that they hired a lot of people for was canceled, or they had to basically scratch it. So then they transferred a bunch of us new hires throughout the company. And that's how I ended up in Kentucky as a uranium tetrafluoride production engineer. And then
what now? What are you, smart or something, Phoebe? What's going on here? I never know who I'm getting on this podcast. What do you know that other people don't know?
A lot. I'm a chemical engineer through my college degree, and currently I am a safety engineer at a national lab. And between then and now, I've had all different kinds of manufacturing jobs. But being in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, just as a not married 22-year-old was like the worst thing you could be. The prospects out there. Whereas, well, at least he has all his teeth.
Hey, people listen to this podcast in Kentucky, Phoebe. You're killing me.
Hi, people from Paducah. It's between Possum Trot and Monkey's Eyebrow. Bet you didn't know that.
Wait a minute. Did you make that up?
No, those are real towns.
Right,
and my husband has a shirt that says, welcome to Possum Trot, Kentucky.
I have to tell everybody listening from Kentucky right now that if that's actually true, and I think I have no reason to doubt Phoebe, then her snarkiness earlier is reasonable, and I don't think we can hold her accountable.
I promise. It's true. It's not like I was in Louisville or Lexington or, one of the populous areas. Like the nearest Target was an hour away. That's just
a very rural place by yourself when you're 22.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it a really good job, or was it just you needed to start somewhere, or what's the idea behind it?
Kind of, I needed to start somewhere because when I got transferred, I was only 6 months into my career, and quitting at that point would be harder to start up. So I was like, all right, I'll go here. I'll work until, my contract is, so I don't have to pay back relocation, and then I'll just find something else. And then that's what I did. And I was in a rotational program for,
She's killing a cat while we're talking. What are you doing to that poor cat? Oh, he's adorable.
This is new. He meows when he wants attention.
That's okay. I do something similar.
Yeah. No, he literally will forget where Andrew and I are when we go to bed. And I just realized that it's really dark in my room. And he'll meow from downstairs, and we have to essentially invite him upstairs into the bedroom so he can come snuggle.
All right. So give me a second here. So I understand taking a job anywhere when you start off, but the part that throws me off a little bit is being by yourself. And cause I'm imagining, maybe I'm wrong, that you work all day and then there's not a lot to do. You don't know anybody and you're not near anything. Is that how you're?
That's pretty much what Kentucky was. I actually started dating Andrew when I was in Kentucky. He was a groomsman and I was a bridesmaid at our close friend's from college wedding. And so I met him and told off my ex at that same wedding. And like, I knew when I saw Andrew, I was like, all right, target acquired.
So
good.
You saw Andrew and thought, he's better than the one I have.
No.
Oh, no.
And yeah, I saw Andrew flirted very heavily, and then at that job we had a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, and we had been texting each other because he was in New York getting his PhD and I was in Kentucky just wasting away. And we'd been texting, and I was like, hey, I have a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, what should I do? And I think he jokingly was like, oh, you should come to Buffalo. And I was like, I could come to Buffalo. And then 10 seconds later I purchased a plane ticket and
Phoebe,
went to Buffalo.
That's amazing. Are you unstable or no? Are you just free?
No.
Okay.
He's one of the best friends of one of my best friends from college. So she has good taste. So
I have to tell
I
you,
knew he wasn't like a weirdo.
For people in Kentucky, it does not bode well that Buffalo was the place she escaped to. just so you know.
He was getting his PhD. He's smart, so that's fine.
Very nice. So we're going to have little tiny smart babies one day?
I hope so.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy if they were kind of dumb? The two of you were just like...
That's like, other than them getting type 1 diabetes, them being like dumb or their favorite subject being English is like my worst nightmare.
I had a conversation yesterday with a couple, and I don't do a lot of three-ways. I don't do a lot of three-way recordings, but this was fun, and they were both very they had very kind of specific traits and hobbies and things, and all I could think the whole time I was talking to them is their kid's going to want to play football, and they're just going to sit there for years.
I hope if I have a son, he doesn't want to play football. Soccer's fine. But football with all those head injuries just freaks me out.
Oh, I didn't even meet the head injuries. These people were just the furthest thing from sporting enthusiasts that you were ever going to meet. And I thought, imagine if they had to sit on a field for 15 years. It would probably ruin their lives.
We'd love it.
See, you would.
We're both Penn Staters. So, I mean, we have a wall dedicated to football stadium, the football stadium panoramas in our home.
So this is what we need to get to from your email. She's going to show me. Yeah, well, this is the exact lunacy I would expect.
That's our dartboard.
From somebody who went to Penn State. Now, so when Phoebe sends me an email, she just says kind of like, I was in college. I did this dance marathon to raise money for cancer, and I was like, immediately being from the Northeast, I thought, Phoebe went to Penn State because...
Well, especially since you're in Jersey, I'm sure you've either seen the canners or have almost hit one with your car.
I have grown up around a bunch of Penn State students standing on corners collecting nickels and dimes for a very large portion of my life. And I know somehow I tangentially understand that there's this dance marathon to raise money for cancer, but mostly what I know about people from Penn State is that they are just shy of being cult members, because
a little bit.
Why do you all love it so much?
So, people are like, well, it's such a big school. Aren't you just a number? And honestly, the way I went through it is you make the school as big or as small as you want it to be. By the time I was a senior, I was knee deep in my engineering classes. I was involved with Thon. I was involved with homecoming. I was in a sorority. I was in another club, and there's so much to do. And of course, football is just fun. And at that time, you're 18 to 22 years old. You have absolutely no responsibilities compared to being, a real life adult. And, when your biggest responsibility is making sure that you study for a test with your other engineering friends, it's just, I don't know. It was probably one of the funnest 4 years of my life, and football was a big part of that.
I have never met a person who went to Penn State who didn't absolutely adore it. Just never.
Yeah, it was, and plus, not to, totally miss out on the academic part. Penn State engineering is a top engineering school.
Yeah, it's a good school.
It's and plus the good thing too is they tell you the statistic when you're going through it. 1 in every 100 working professionals is a Penn Stater. So,
eventually we'll meet somebody else.
Maybe a hiring manager is a former Penn Stater, and boom, connected, clicked.
Yeah. And then
you
do the secret handshake that only you from Penn State and the devil knows. And the next thing you know, see, she's making maybe there is a handshake. All right, let's not mess with these people just in case they really are a cult, and I don't want them coming after me. But anyway, no. She's like, no, we're not, which is exactly what they would train you to say, by the way, Phoebe. True.
The Kool-Aid is delicious, by the way.
So you're diagnosed at what age?
I was going into my 3rd birthday. I actually had to ask my parents about my diagnosis story because I didn't really know it.
Okay.
So I first asked my mom, and she was like, we were shopping for your 3rd birthday cake. And, backstory, my mom is a nurse and my dad is a surgeon.
Okay.
So strong medical background for both of these people.
Hey, real quick before you start, were they shopping early in the morning before anybody else was there for your birthday cake?
I think so, honestly.
Find that out.
My mom said it was in the morning.
Yeah, find that out and send me an email.
Will do.
Okay.
So, my mom was like, you were very specific. You wanted the mermaid cake. And as we were shopping, sorry, I needed some water real quick.
You're fine.
There we go. As we were shopping, I go, Mama, I'm thirsty. And she was like, okay, well, it's May. It's warm out. Have a juice box. And then I go, Mama, I'm still thirsty. And she's like, wow, you're really drinking this really fast. Are you okay? And I go, yeah, my mouth feels like cotton. She's like, cotton? What the hell? And so she was already on alert because that's just a weird thing for a 2, almost 3-year-old to say.
Yeah.
And then she's talking to my dad later that night. And she's like, hey, Phoebe's been acting kind of weird. She's been going to the bathroom a lot. And she told me her mouth felt like cotton. My dad's like, oh, that's really odd. Well, let's keep our eye on her for the next couple of days. And I think the next day is a weekend, but my dad had to do some rounds at the hospital and he brought me with him and I would toddle after him. And apparently all the nurses loved it. And before we go, I'm like, Papa, I have to pee. And he's like, all right, well, go pee. And then we get to the hospital, not even a 15-minute drive away. Papa, I have to pee again. Huh, okay. He takes me to the bathroom and we're only there for like an hour. And I'm like, Papa, I have to pee again. And he's like, okay. And he takes me to the emergency room and finds me an empty bed. He's like, sit up here, Phoebe, and let's test your blood sugar. And it was like 420. And he's like, oh, damn it. So, yeah. So I think between the time my parents noticed I had symptoms and when they actually confirmed a diagnosis, it was less than 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I actually have a half brother who's 30 years older than me. 30? No.
That seems unreasonable.
Yeah.
Is he?
No.
Papa you have a 60-year-old half brother?
Yeah.
And your dad's 114?
Papa Bear's, oh gosh, he was 60 when I turned 21, so he's 69. Yes. Yeah. 70, 80, 82, 90. Yeah. So David was born in 70 and he has type 1 diabetes.
Okay, hold on.
And we're related through dad.
Yeah, I was going to say, slow down a second here.
Sorry. I'm excited and nervous.
You're excited and nervous?
Yes.
Are you seriously?
A little bit.
Every one of you who says that, if my wife could hear you, she would smack you in the head for being nervous to be near me. Okay, but wait, I need to understand. Not that I think it has anything to do with anything, but maybe it does. You're 30 now.
Yes.
You literally have a half brother who is 69 years old?
No, my dad is 69 years old.
Your dad is 69 years old. So your dad had your half brother when he was 9. Your dad is a sexual prodigy.
I did math wrong. Okay. Sorry, David. David is 50.
Okay.
And then I think Tara is about to turn. Tara is my half sister.
Mm-hmm.
Me, start over. My dad has been married 3 times and he has had kids in each of those relationships.
Gotcha.
From his first marriage was David. David is the other type 1 diabetic in the family.
Got it.
From his second marriage came Tara, then Levi. And then from his third marriage came me.
Okay.
So I have siblings, but I would say I grew up an only child.
I hear that. Does your dad have any children from his 4th or 5th marriage?
No. Not from his 4th. He's recently remarried.
Gotcha. Is your dad like the Genghis Khan of doctors? he just
no comment.
No comment.
I don't know if I want my dad to listen to this or not.
Is
so
he
we'll
just
see.
like, is he get up every morning and just kind of crack his fingers and go,
who's it gonna be?
I'm gonna spread some seed today, baby.
No idea.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. By the way, I was joking, and then when you told me he was married again, I was like, damn, I'm intuitive.
Oh, wow.
Although, how intuitive do you have to be? So, okay.
Yeah, right.
But your dad's got a ton of energy.
Yeah, he
and
does.
No money, I'm betting.
No, he's
doing okay?
Doing quite fine.
God
He
damn.
lives in the middle of nowhere, Maine, and his house is on the bay, and I get jealous every time I see pictures, and he lobster fishes for himself, and
Those lobsters better make sure they don't get pregnant.
No, Dad, yeah, I know. Dad is just he's the most like eclectic man I've known, and until I met my husband, he was like the smartest man I've ever known.
Okay.
So
it's interesting. That is really kind of interesting. Okay, so you have an older half brother who also has type 1. So your
he was
dad
diagnosed at 15, and according to my dad, his symptoms were much slower onset than mine. Like it took them a while to figure out David was a diabetic, but for me, it was like right away.
Well, he had also seen it before, I'm imagining, unless he was
true. Yeah.
That's interesting. He's the through thread between the diabetes, your father.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Your dad can get anybody pregnant and make a baby with type 1 diabetes. He's like a superhero.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, two out of 4 kids, right?
He's batting 500. Yeah. I know he's older, but I'd like to see him knock up 2 more ladies to see what happens.
My dad kind of looks like the most interesting man in the world, is how I would, but paler with blue eyes.
So you imagine the most interesting man with a darker sheen.
Like the original Dos Equis man?
Yes.
He was very tan. My dad is not
literally tan. Oh, I see. I gotcha. All right.
That's who my dad looks like.
You weren't just being there was no hyperbole there. You were literally saying
I was actually making a real reference.
A real reference. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got to stop using so many big words or people are going to figure out I know more than I say I do. Let's get back to me saying great and wow. All right, now.
Okay.
I'm not much smarter than I purport to be on the podcast, by the way.
Me neither. It's fine.
Okay, so you are diagnosed at 3.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up with type 1? That was 27 years ago, and I can do math reasonably well. That was like 1997. No,
93.
93?
Yeah,
so
93.
I transposed the 7 and the 3 in my backwards math. Okay, 1993. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
I, by the way, in 1993, was 24 years old. So nice. You seem very young to me. And so what was it like growing up? I'm putting the ads here because this episode's about to heat up, and I don't want to interrupt it when it does. So quickly, let me tell you about this. Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. You may be eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash. That is 30 days of using the Omnipod Dash insulin pump for free. That's 30 days, 1/12 of a year, where you're not paying for insulin pumps just to try the Dash. And you're not even like hooked in. Like you can be like, never mind, I don't want it. It's fine. Maybe use this opportunity to see what it's like to swim without, having to disconnect your tubed pump. That's a big deal for those of you who are tube pumpers, right? You disconnect to get in the shower, and then maybe you forget and don't connect again. And the next thing you know, your blood sugar is 250, or you jump in the water, and now you don't have your basal insulin for a while. These problems are, they're real. And they can be avoided using the Omnipod. So check it out. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Don't disconnect to go to the beach. Don't disconnect to get in the water, to take a shower, a bath, to frolic about. Do you ever have somebody point a hose at you and say, oh God, don't spray me, my insulin pump? Don't have to do that anymore either. Head out in the backyard and shoot each other with a hose. You can do that with an Omnipod. There are a lot of other great features about the Omnipod that I don't have time to tell you about. But this whole bit about it being tubeless and eligible to get into the watery situations, it's a big push here for the summertime. Don't forget about it. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Now, you have an insulin pump or you don't. You have a CGM or you don't. But everybody has a meter. But not everybody has a great meter. But you can, and it is not expensive. The Contour Next One meter is the most accurate, easy to use, easy to hold, lovable little meter that my daughter has ever had. It is the favorite of mine, personally. I love it. contournext.com/juicebox. Second chance test strips where you can go back in and get more blood if you don't get enough the first time without ruining the test strip or impacting the accuracy of the test. And the accuracy is crazy. It is so good. It's so accurate. It's accurate. Do you understand? It's super accurate. Find out about it. contournext.com/juicebox. If you don't need anything else from a meter, at the very least, you need accuracy. But this meter's got so much more. It's going to fit great in your pocket, in your bag, in your purse. It is incredibly affordable. You actually may be eligible for a free one. You could find out at the link. Seriously, head over. It's the most comprehensive blood glucose meter website I've ever seen in my life. The people who put it together really made sure that everything you needed to know was on that site, and it was easily accessible. contournext.com/juicebox. Go find out if you're eligible for the free 30-day trial of the Dash. Omnipod.com/juicebox. And now we are going to dig into Phoebe's life and laugh like hyenas. There are links to these sponsors and all of the sponsors at juiceboxpodcast.com or right there in the show notes of your podcast player. All right, you guys ready? You're not ready for this, but you're going to love it.
I don't remember growing up with any other type 1 diabetics. And it was actually quite hard in the early years because my parents divorced shortly after my diagnosis or the same year of my diagnosis.
Well, he's on a schedule. He can't. I'm sure it had nothing to do with you guys. He just had to keep moving.
I guess.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But so my mom and I moved to Atlanta, and the reason I moved back in with my dad is apparently my daycare didn't handle my diabetes well. They would administer insulin, but they wouldn't draw it up. So every day during lunch, my mom had to sit 3-year-old Phoebe on the phone and had me count the lines that I could see. And
That's arbitrary.
Eventually she... What?
That's arbitrary.
Yeah, it's so weird, right?
Yeah.
So, and she's a nurse, so it's not, and she was a nurse and now a single mother. So it's not like she could just, be at home with me to take care of me. So she was just like, I guess she called my dad and was like, oh, and this isn't working. She needs to come be with you or there's more resources. And cause my dad was essentially like a big fish in a small pond kind of thing. And, with him being an orthopedic surgeon, he's operated on everyone's mom, grandma, blah, blah, blah. And I had already had an established nanny up there. So I moved back in with my dad. And from what I can remember, there were definitely no other type 1s. And my dad was very, very adamant that I learned how to do everything I needed to do without the help of an adult. So by the time I could do long division, he was having me calculate my dosages. It was hard at first because I was on NPH and regular back in the day. And that just, sorry, I just remembered a funny story. So with NPH and regular, you've talked about this before, but you have to be on a very specific eating schedule. And I was the pickiest eater in the whole world.
Yeah.
Like the juice on my food could not touch on the plate. If it did, I wouldn't eat it.
Okay.
And I had learned that if I just hold out long enough, Dad will panic and feed me whatever I want. So one day it backfired, and it was time to get ready for school, and he poured me some cereal, and I took a bite, and I was like, Daddy, I don't like this. And he was like, damn it, Phoebe, I am not doing it this morning. You are going to eat your cereal and you are going to go to school. So I eat the cereal. I'm crying. I'm like, I don't like it, Daddy. It tastes bad. And turns out, go to school. Everything's fine. Come home. Dad's like, all right, we need to go to the store. We need to get some milk. And I was like, but we have a full thing of milk. And he's like, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. It was spoiled. True story.
So the day he decided he couldn't put up with your bullshit anymore was the day the milk was bad, and then he made you eat it.
That is exactly what happened.
That's great.
That is exactly what happened. Yeah. So, and think of, I think I was like 5 or 6 at that time too. And I was stubborn and petty enough to just plow through it anyways. So
well, you won. You ate that milk. You ate that.
I ate it. Yeah. I ate it. I didn't drink the milk, and he was like, "That's fine," but I ate it.
Just get out of my house. Go to school.
Just go to school.
I got ladies coming over. You got to get out of here.
But yeah, he was very adamant that I knew, because with him being a doctor, I couldn't call him to ask, hey, what should I do for this? Mm-hmm. So he made sure I knew what to do. Of course, when he was there, he would double check things. And
Cat's
second cat coming in.
There's another cat?
Yeah, this one's Meowser.
Oh, Meowser.
Yeah.
I wish you guys could see. That is a pretty cat.
Thank you.
No, of course. Well, so his schedule didn't really allow for you to be in contact with him, and so
no.
how did
and also texting wasn't a thing, so it was all phone calls and beepers. It was just so back in the day, and I was a latchkey kid. I would come home from kindergarten and let myself in the house. Mm-hmm. And
do you think people even
I knew how to make
that
scrambled eggs from a young age. I knew how to make a sandwich. I knew how to cook for myself. All from a very young age.
Wow.
Because if anything happened, it's me.
Yeah.
It's not.
I really am finding myself wondering if people even understand, younger people would even understand the concept of that. If I tried to explain to my son that you used to come home in kindergarten, bust out your key, let yourself in the house, and start making some eggs, he would just be like, no one called the police.
If we did that now, CPS would be all over us. But back then, it was totally normal, right?
Yeah, I raised my brothers. I mean, pretty much,
right?
Yeah. I don't think that is as common anymore. I'm sure it still happens, but it's just probably not nearly as common.
But good. Well, all I know is being so independent growing up. I did go to diabetes camp once. I didn't like it because I felt like, I don't like being around other diabetics. Why are you trying to tell me to do with my diabetes? You don't know anything. Go away. I grew up to be so hyper independent that I have a hard time sharing when I need help, because it's my thing. That's been pretty much the only cause of a disagreement between Andrew and I too. It's just he's like, you need to tell me when you are low. And I'm like, yeah, but usually I've already taken care of it. And one time I literally sat in front of him with my checker, 2 Gatorades, and I thought that was enough. And then I finally came back up and I was like, that was a bad one. He was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, because I already handled it. It's fine.
So this is interesting, seriously, because the people I told you about earlier, I recorded with yesterday. Mm-hmm. I am going to be certain that whenever one of them comes out, that yours comes out, they come out together, because these people are a younger married couple, and she, the non-diabetic, is incredibly involved in his type 1, and it was seamless the way they talked about it. And you're like, get away from me. If I have to die, I'll die, but you're not helping me.
Yes. I have gotten better. So I have a Dexcom, and the hardest thing for me to do was to let Andrew follow me, which he does now. And I was working out the other day and I started to dip, and he has a song that apparently he was driving the other day and he was listening to Low by the Foo Fighters. And he's like, this song is you. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, it's called Low. And the opening lyrics are, hey, you, are you in there? I'm stuck outside you. And he's like, when you're low enough, you just go somewhere else and no one can reach you. So he pushed that song onto the Alexa and I had to yell downstairs, like, I'm fine. Leave me alone.
So he's just now, because you won't allow him to be involved with your diabetes care, he's now just playing taunting music at you while you're low.
I occasionally let him in. I've told him, oh, maybe we should practice having you put a like insulin pump site on me and stuff like that. And he knows the basics. He knows how to use my pump. He knows what a low blood sugar is, what a high blood sugar is, and how to correct for each. But I'm just, so this is my thing. It's not your thing. It's mine.
Right. Well, okay. So besides the fact, and I'm not a psychologist, obviously, I'm just a podcaster, but besides the fact that your father instilled in you that you needed to take care of this by yourself at an age that is so young that I don't imagine you could escape the message. So besides that, though, what would the problem be? Like, forget your any neuroses feelings you have about it. Like, what would the issue be with him helping?
There's really no issue. Another thing was, another thing is, like, my dad was so stoic and very serious. My mom was quite emotional. And anytime that I had a bad blood sugar, I would hear, you're going to lose your feet. You're going to go on dialysis. You can't let your blood sugar be 250. What are you doing?
Who said this to you?
My mom.
Phoebe, I'm starting to think you might have
lost. Makes sense now,
you
right?
might have lost the parent lottery a little bit.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure they're lovely and everything. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just
great parents. But when it came to diabetes, like, if I needed help, I'm sure I could have gone to them. But and with them being divorced, I had my mom and I had my dad. So when it was like, who do I go to? It was whoever I was living with. And my mom would panic at other numbers, and which is funny because she's a nurse. Like, she should not panic. And whenever we got like a bad A1C, it was, well, what are you doing not wrong? Not, hey, what can we fix together?
Can I ask you?
So that just led, go.
I want to ask you a question. So this just happened recently. Like, I just made an episode that's actually going to go up in a couple of hours. And it started from a Facebook question that someone asked. I don't know if you're inside the private Facebook group, but so inside
I just joined.
Oh, thank you. Inside the private Facebook group, a parent of a child said, hey, I know there are a lot of adults in here. What kind of advice would you give? Like, what did you learn from growing up with diabetes? Right. And it went in all kinds of different interesting directions. But one of the things that stuck out just now while you were talking to me was that this adult believed that when their parents were harsh or angry or, you have to do this, that it was really just fear coming out as anger, that they were just afraid for you and didn't know what to do.
Absolutely. Right. And, it really is. It was really was just fear. Like, I'm my mom's only child, and she, like, if anything happens to me, she would just crumble. Right. So she wants me to be healthy. She wants me to pop out like a million kids. And when I was younger, anytime that my blood sugars were out of whack, which, back in the day, whack was, below an 8, right?
Okay.
That was like the general consensus of the 90s and stuff.
Say that again, below an 8 A1C?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were below an 8, things were upside down.
Oh, great.
Oh, that was just
no.
great.
If I was below an 8, things were great.
Okay.
Because back in the day, they preached the better high than low.
Right.
Don't want her to go low. And now we're learning, well, we don't want them to go high either.
Yeah.
So
why just one? Why do we always pick one? Why is it always this or that? In life, I'm stuck on this lately. No one can just see the nuance. It's always just this or that. There's never a blend. There's never a mix. I don't know.
I know. And, I've started ever since listening to your podcast, I have gotten more aggressive with my insulin, and I'm at a 5.2 now, which was a huge success for me. I've been in like the low 6s for the past couple of years, but then I was like, pre-bolusin, huh? All right, let's give that a whirl.
That took a
dropped
point.
My A1C by a whole point.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. What about your spikes? How have they changed since you pre-bolus? What did they once were?
Spike now is like 160.
Right.
Like, yeah, and I have my I have my Dexcom alarm set to like 120. I wish I could set it lower because, but for some reason it doesn't let me alert lower than 120. But
really?
Whatever. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if it's the app or what have you.
I think you should be able to, but
I'll have to fiddle with it.
We'll figure that out. Neither here nor there. I am proud of you.
Thank you.
I don't know you, and you don't need my adulation, but that was very cool.
But it's nice to have regardless.
Yeah, that's lovely. I mean, how long did it take you to take a full point out of your A1C?
No, 3 months.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I don't think it takes long at all. No. And I agree with you. 160 is the number where I start thinking, I messed this up. You know what I mean?
I don't feel good anymore at 160.
Right.
I don't. I get a little bit queasy. And I'm 30, and my husband and I have been talking about the baby thing. My 2 good friends in California, they're both pregnant now, so apparently it's contagious.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, pregnancy is going to be a number. And he's like, well, you don't know that. I'm like, I do. Even if it's an easy pregnancy, the diabetes part is going to suck. And then if it's not an easy pregnancy is going to suck and diabetes is going to suck. So we have an agreement that I'll be pregnant once, like we'll get through a healthy pregnancy once, and then I don't have to do it again.
I don't have to do it again. Your verbiage is terrific there. If I was you, I would just trade those 2 cats in for a larger animal. And
we're thinking about getting a puppy.
Yeah, something with a more human face, and I think you're finished, really. So are you scared?
So
I want to know about this. Are you scared to be pregnant?
A little bit. Yeah. It freaks me out. One, because, you have this thing growing in you, and that's just kind of odd, in the first place. And then, my diabetes is affected by every single decision that I make throughout the day, whether it's doing something or not doing something. And if I mess it up, it could hurt the baby. And people try to be like, well, it's never your fault. Just manage your diabetes. I'm like, you're telling me 2 conflicting things. You're telling me to manage my diabetes, but if I don't manage my diabetes and something happens, then it's not my fault. It's like, you got to pick one or the other.
There's a difference between the kind of comfort we give each other so that we all don't lose our minds and the kind of what's real. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, I would know that if something had happened because I'd let my blood sugars run high for a little bit. And I also know that it's not like one high blood sugar, it's consistent high blood sugars. So I'm basically right now, I'm trying to practice pregnancy blood sugars without being pregnant. And I think I've gotten the hang of it a little bit.
I think that's a great idea, honestly.
I have the time. We're not looking to do it anytime soon.
Did the pro tip episode on pregnancy help you at all?
Oh yeah, that was actually the first the first few episodes that I listened to.
Okay. Yeah.
So and I was like, all right, so it's doable. It sounds terrible, but it sounds doable.
So your concern really is, if I can dig into this a little bit, your concern is that you think you can do it. Now you've proved that you can do it. Now you're worried that you just arbitrarily won't do it, or that something will happen so wonky that you can't. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm scared that just because I can handle it without being pregnant and the added hormones and gosh, I was talking to a doctor and they're like, we want you to eat a bajillion carbs a day. And I was like, I don't know. They want you to eat 50 carbs at every meal and have breakfast, lunch, dinner. Oh, and don't forget your 20 carbs of snacks. And I'm just like, so you want me to be in the 200s all the time?
They're going to ask you to
That's what's going to happen.
It's going to be a lot more insulin is what it's going to be.
Yeah, gosh, I know.
It's going to be a lot more.
And that's
going to
weird
be like
to
puberty.
wrap my head around. All of my basal rates are between 0.8 and 0.9. And the fact that it would have to go up to 3 is just I know it's the insulin that I'll need and it's not going to cause me to tank because my body needs it. Mm-hmm. But it's still a bit of a mind warp. You know?
It's hard to wrap your head around. And
it really is.
I actually want to have somebody on to talk more about that. And I don't even know how to blend it into an episode or not, but it really makes all the sense in the world. And at the same time, from an outsider's perspective, it's meaningless. You know what I mean? From my perspective, what does it matter if it's 0.8 or 1.8?
I don't know. It's such a weird thing. And I can tell too, all right, if I don't exercise, my blood sugars do start to creep up a little bit. So I make sure I exercise every day. I don't, maybe it's a pride thing about having.
So that's the thing I can't figure out, because I do think I see people.
Why is it so prideful to be I don't use
much insulin.
Look at me.
Yeah. I that's because you see it a lot with adults especially, and it's a big impediment for people making improvements. I even see this listen, somebody will come to me, in my private life, and they've got blood sugars that are pretty consistently in the 250s. Yeah. With their kid. I can use a recent
example. And you're
just
they need more insulin.
Well, I'm this isn't hard to figure out. By the time it's over, they're you're a genius. I'm am I? So, but the kid's basal's 0.3, right?
Right.
And I say, I think the basal needs to be more 0.6. Well, they're oh my God, no, that's double. And I'm
double.
Yeah, what?
But clearly,
right? And
your body needs it.
So to dig into the psychology behind it, at some point that kid's basal was 0.15, right? And 0.3 is already doubled. And they can't imagine that one day that kid's going to weigh 110 pounds and his basal is going to be 1.2 an hour. You know what I mean?
Or he's going to be going through puberty, and that's just going to...
Yeah, which is then leads to why when ladies get their periods, they can't make that leap with their basal insulin. So I'm helping Arden's friend the other day. I swear to you, if the FBI ever looks at my text messages, I think I'm at least going to get investigated, because I'm texting a 16-year-old girl, you have to be sure and let me know when your period starts, which I'm assuming does not look good from the outside, right? So
yeah. Shark Week just throws everything off. So,
but this little girl's basal doubles for a portion of her cycle. It goes from 1.2 an hour to 2 in basal. And if it doesn't, her blood sugars go right up in the 270s and they won't come down again.
Wow.
Just like that.
Yeah. For me, Shark Week causes not so much basal insensitivity, but it seems like when I dose, it takes longer for my insulin to start acting. So I have to pre-bolus even earlier. Not necessarily a higher amount, but, and then of course, it takes longer to start working, but then I feel like it's more sensitive. So if I don't time it right, I'll spike and then I'll just tank. So,
and I think I remember Samantha talking about that in her pregnancy series about the pre-bolus being much longer, right? Was that helpful to hear her? Did you hear her stuff?
Oh yeah. Okay. No, it was great.
Cool.
I looked up every single pregnancy episode and listened to it, and it definitely calmed me down a bit. And then we also made an appointment with a maternal fetal medicine doctor, and he was like, yeah, you can start right now if you want. I was like, no.
So so the other piece of this has to be too, is you have I'm assuming a taxing job.
It's not too bad. I'm a safety engineer, so my role is a lot of documentation, and also just making sure that when someone does introduce like a new process, a new chemical, we go through okay, well, what if there's a reaction we didn't expect for? What if we overpressure the system? What could go wrong, and who could get hurt? Things like that.
So
and
it's a desk job then. Like you work from a
part desk, part being involved with like a research project.
See, in my mind, this was like an 80s movie, and you had a white plastic helmet on, a long white coat. You were holding a clipboard with safety goggles on, walking around somewhere, checking things out. So I
do that.
You
too.
do that too? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I find it to be pretty entertaining. And it's especially different with, I'm in a more research based role right now. And before I was in manufacturing, and manufacturing so much more high paced than a research and development kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the chemicals I used to work with in manufacturing were just nasty. Like you cover the size of your palm with one of these chemicals and it could cause heart arrhythmia and you could die. Kind of nasty.
Wow.
Fun stuff.
In my fake 80s movie, Michael Keaton was in the helmet for some reason. Now let's try to figure out through my memory why that is. Hold on. I'm going to guess it's a film called Gung Ho where they were making cars. And I remember Michael Keaton in garb slightly like I've described. Gung Ho is not a good movie. Please don't watch it. But it was huge.
Right.
In 1986. And now I'm going to Google it to find a picture of him. And with any luck, he's going to have a helmet on and be walking through a factory. George Wendt was in this film. Do you remember George Wendt from Cheers by any chance?
It rings a bell.
Does it? My memory is, I can't believe this is what passed for a movie when I was a child and a teen. My kids are watching like Infinity War and, I'm watching Michael Keaton.
One of my friends' favorite movies, and not sarcastically favorite, but like her actual favorite movie was Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay. It's acceptable. So, I'm just saying, when I was growing up, this is why like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars was so huge, because everything else was just, it's like an independent film.
Was gung ho.
Yeah, it was like four guys talking on screen, and sometimes a white lady would wander in and do a little, expository like dialogue and then leave again. She's right. It is time for dinner. Yeah. Things have grown since then. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I was, gosh, I forget why we were on this topic, but my husband and I were talking, and I was like, they could never make a movie like Blazing Saddles.
Oh,
today.
Yeah, no, we're not seeing any of that.
It would, the script would be burned.
Like, we've insulted everyone who's alive. We can't do that.
Can't do that.
It'll come back around, by the way.
I think so.
Seriously, the woke thing will fall asleep.
Will subside.
Yeah, and everybody will be like, "Oh, that's funny." Okay.
Oh, this is funny again.
Yeah,
good.
It's okay to be funny. Nobody means it. No one's saying you should do that. That's
exactly.
Definitely could happen. Might not. I might be old enough to be one of your step brothers at that point, but by the time it comes around. But that could be. Well. So I'm remiss here if I don't ask, as we're talking about, because we were talking about your kind of job, because I was wondering if the work you did would interfere with being pregnant at all. It seems like you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Is there any, and this is not why you came on, so I feel bad asking this, but I feel like this is where it led us to. Is there any like voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, if I have a baby, I'm going to get divorced? No, you don't like have like that, like
Andrew's far too good to let go ever.
Oh, okay. So you'd be the problem if it happened. You're saying that if it went sideways,
the only
it would be you.
pregnancy issue is the diabetes.
Gotcha.
It's just freaky to me.
I just didn't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
No. Andrew's just, he is like one of the best men that he's one of the best people I've ever met. And you know, he's caring, he's smart, he's funny, and he's the kind of funny that it's like, it's not obvious right away. But as he like warms up to you, he starts cracking out these one-liners, and then you realize like, oh my God, this kid's hilarious.
Phoebe, do you guys like tell math jokes to each other while you're having sex? Just be truthful.
Chemistry, actually.
Chemistry? Okay, I wasn't sure. I understand.
There's a math pickup line, and it's like, hey girl, can I be your derivative so I can lay tangent to your curves? And my response to that is, I'd rather you be my integral so you can take up the space beneath me.
Everyone, that's how smart people hear humor. Just so you know. That's how
smart people get pregnant.
That's how they get pregnant. They make a blueprint first, and then they get together and meet a number of different times over Zoom to make sure that it's going to work out. And they plan a day off into the future. And then they also have an extra day in case that day doesn't work. And that's it. By the way, thank God people can think like you, or I'd be washing my hair with, whale fat or something.
I just make sure
right?
I just make sure no one gets hurt. And if they do get hurt, I figure out how that happened and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool job.
It's fun. I enjoy it.
I would see. It's interesting. I would think you would. My wife has a job that if she sat and described it to people, most people I think would be like, oh God,
I
that's
think our
horrible.
Jobs are very similar in that we're both dealing with federal and state regulations, and we have to make sure that those regulations are applied and followed. And if something goes wrong, we have to fix it, essentially. So, because I think you mentioned once she works for like the FDA or something.
She works in drug safety. So not for the government side, but so she very much makes sure that what's happening on the company side is safe for the people who are eventually going to end up with whatever it is they're working on. Yeah. Right, and it's very detail oriented, and there's a ton of laws and rules, and you kind of need to know them. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like it's like a stop sign you can't see. You have to know it's there and stop, but no one's going to tell you it's not there. And if you don't stop, they are going to come along and give you a ticket. It's a very interesting set of knowledge she has.
Yes. Yeah. And my knowledge bank is, we need to increase the exhaust velocity because there was an incident that happened in middle of nowhere, Colorado, where people were painting and it caught on fire and 5 people died. So that's what my knowledge bank is all of the chemical industry's major accidents for not following safety regulations.
Yeah. And you don't have to just know your company. You have to know what's happening everywhere, because it might have happened to another company and it would apply to you at some point. And that's interesting. No, and it takes, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I watch my wife work sometimes, especially now. She took over our dining room for like the last 7 months. There are not a lot of people who could do what she's doing, and she's exceedingly good at it. It's really like fascinating. Her brain must be firing 1,000,000 miles an hour. Because if you put me in that job, I'd be like, I don't know. What do you guys think? And if nobody said anything, I'd be like, must be okay. No one on the call said anything. All right, it's fine then. Move on. Then 5 people are dead in a painting booth somewhere, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be fun. So
cool. So what do you do now? Like, how do you manage? What's your gear?
So I have a Dexcom and a Tandem insulin pump.
Are you using the Control IQ?
Nah, no? It's not aggressive enough for me. It sets your target at 110, and if you get to 90, it cuts back on your basal. And I'm like, but I want to be at 90. Don't cut back on my basal. So
just got where I'm going, and now you're making me leave.
And, So I found that it was too. What's the word I'm looking for? It was too non-aggressive. It wants you. I mean, I'm sure for people who are like bouncing all over from 400 to 40 every day, multiple times a day, I'm sure it's like a godsend.
Yeah.
But I wasn't at that point, and now I'm trying to be like, hey, if I could hang out at 85 all day, I call that a plus.
That'd be all right.
And for me, my issue, like, I'm not scared of lows. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of diabetics are just absolutely terrified of low blood sugars.
Right.
I don't know if because when I was a kid, I had a number of seizures. I almost had a seizure when I was by myself living in Kentucky, got myself out of that. But lows don't scare me, maybe because I've seen the worst. Highs, on the other hand, like, I don't like highs.
Right.
And lows are easier to fix. You chug your Gatorade and in about 10 minutes, you're coming back up. Whereas with a high, it's half an hour before the insulin even starts working. Uh-huh. And then, another hour before it peaks. And then finally, like 2 hours later, you're coming down. So I just think a low is so much easier to fix.
It's so funny. I had a question that I knocked out of my own head by laughing. I was going to say something like, I built you up to be smart. And then you said non-aggressive or unaggressive. And I was like, damn it.
I'm not word smart.
She let me down there. But now I'm just wondering if you found yourself on the floor in Kentucky thinking, I am not dying in Kentucky by myself.
Like, no, I thought that. Yeah. What happened was I woke up one morning. I'm like, uh-oh. I don't feel good. And I stood up and I had an open container of glucose tabs on my desk. And as I was falling to the ground, I managed to knock the glucose tabs off of the nightstand. And they were about 6 inches from my face. And I started convulsing. I was completely conscious the whole time, which was bizarre. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, F this, I am not dying in Paducah. And I managed to in The Princess Bride, when after he eats the miracle pill, he like flings his arm to like move around. I basically did that, and I got a hold of like 3 glucose tabs and shoved them in my mouth. And then I regained motor function and I shoved like 10 more in my mouth. And then I called Andrew and he's like, why are you on the, I FaceTimed him. He's like, why are you on the floor? I was like, I think I had a seizure, but I'm not sure, but I don't feel good. He was like, okay. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I am getting the number for the paramedics just in case I lose you. I was like, alrighty.
And I'm busy telling Alexa to play Low by the Foo Fighters.
We didn't have one of those at that point. That was before Alexa.
I'm just impressed that an engineer had enough hand-eye coordination to knock something on the floor as they were falling. What do you think of that?
Well, I play soccer. So
they don't let you use your hands in soccer, though.
I was a goalie.
Oh, look at you. You have an answer for every one of my questions.
Yes. I was also concussed once, so maybe that's why I'm not good with words.
That soccer ball hit you in the head a little too hard?
No, someone kicked me in the head.
Oh, that's worse.
Yeah. For weeks, I was like, when are we going to make up this game that we missed? And my teammates were like, Phoebes. Yeah.
We
didn't miss that game. I was like, ha.
We all played it. You sat on the side and said weird stuff for like an hour and a half.
Oddly, you went back in. That was probably not a good idea.
Did you really try to play again?
My coach put me back in, yeah.
I saw my son's catcher one time, took a foul ball and came right through and hit him in the helmet. And he caught a little longer before he came out of the game. And it was a double header. And I spoke to him hours later after all the games were over. And he's like, I only really remember like the last half hour, what's going on right now. Like he was gone. He played afterwards for a little while. Doesn't remember playing like anything.
No, I don't remember anything from that day. And then later I was getting headaches and my mom took me to a doctor and she's like, have you had any injuries in the past few months? I was like, well, I was kicked in the head. And my mom looked at me because she didn't go to my soccer games because she would panic anytime someone came near me with the ball. So I eventually told her, I was like, you gotta just not come.
I thought she didn't come because it was soccer.
No,
which is
no, like, she would yell like, "Ooh, watch out. Oh, sweetheart." And I would be like, Mom, stop.
Everyone should know.
And I was like, you don't have to come.
Yeah, just leave her at home.
And then she was like, wait, you didn't tell me this. I was like, oh yeah, I probably forgot.
I want you and everyone listening to know that at this point in the life of the podcast, I only tease about soccer because of one person listening. So
Excellent.
if you're listening still, one former collegiate soccer player who once emailed me and said, please stop making fun of soccer. I'm quite literally just doing it to f with you.
Perfect.
Just so you know.
Excellent.
It just makes me happy to tease and think that there's one person out there that's like, why won't he stop making fun of soccer? It's a nice sport. I don't like it.
It's like one of the few sports that women can play where you can still hit each other and it's fine. So
what about roller derby?
That's why I joined. I thought about joining a roller derby team when I was in Kentucky because there was nothing else to do. And I thought that would be fun.
I got to be honest. If anyone's listening who does roller derby,
oh yeah,
I would like you to be on the show.
Seriously, I did jujitsu for a little bit, but then I went back on a pump and a CGM. I was like, this is going to get ripped off and they're too expensive.
And you just kind of stop. So,
yeah.
So throughout your life, and we're going to wrap up because we're up on time, but throughout your life, doing regular and MPH as a kid and everything, do you have any recollection for what your A1Cs were back then? You just think, were they actually under 8 or was that just the goal?
Under 8 was the goal. I was probably floating around 8 for most of my childhood.
Okay.
And then college happened and I wish I had a Dexcom in college because I hate checking my blood sugar. I loathe it. I get that for some people it's automatic and it's no big deal. But for me, I was lucky if I was testing 3 times a day. Right. Because I hated it. And I hated seeing the high numbers. And it would be like, I would have a beer and then dinner time would come around and I knew I was going to be high because beer has carbs. So I'm just not going to check and I'm just going to dose. And obviously with the Dexcom, that kind of takes care of everything because I can just look at my phone real quick. But yeah, I was happy to be in the 8s. I never got into the double digits, but that was probably mostly luck. And now that I have the data and the technology, I can still have like the snacks. And if I forget to look at my pump after eating a few crackers, I can be like, ooh, just give that insulin real quick. All right, I'm 80. Oh, maybe I'm okay.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I just loathed checking my blood sugar, and that's probably why I was running higher than I could have been.
Hold on a second. My wife is irritating me.
Maybe it's just because we're early in our marriage, but Andrew doesn't irritate me yet.
Well, no, she's texting me. She needs to know something, right? Which is fine. And
sure.
So she sent me a text, which I ignored because I'm doing something.
We're doing stuff.
And now I'm getting multiple text messages. So she's setting up a new laptop for work. Her laptop just died. They sent her another one. She's got to get it set up, right? So I get a picture of a screen that's asking for our Wi-Fi password, which, by the way, is the same. I already have to bleep earlier, so I now there'll be a bleep during my editing. It's the same Wi-Fi password that we've had for 25 years. And then I get new laptop. So now it's bzz for the picture. My phone buzzes under my leg. And then it buzzes again because I don't answer the picture. Then she sends new laptop that buzzes. Then it buzzes a second time. Then it comes in hello. Then I say I'm recording. And then I send our Wi-Fi password through text, which now I'm assuming the NSA has. And it's not going to be long now before Bill Barr's using my Wi-Fi. Right. And then she goes, oh, never mind. I got it. Fucking kidding me.
I've been trying really hard not to swear because I have a mouth like a sailor and grew up for a bit in Boston and in the Philly area. So for me, I'm gonna have the kid that teaches all the other kids the swear words. I just know it. Like watch my child's first word be like or something like that. And I was joking in my head before coming on. I was like, oh, we're going to have to make this an after dark because Phoebe has a sailor's mouth.
And you thought, see, you did well. I cursed, not you.
I know. I was like, oh, once he curses, I'll be good.
The biggest problem with cursing is that then when I'm editing, I have to stop and bleep it and all that. It just takes more time. Although,
yeah, I know.
I mean, if you're going to text me 7 times about the Wi-Fi password that you goddamn well know, I'm going to have to be upset. That's all. All right, so hold on 1 second. So you were saying, boy, if anybody can follow this, they have ADHD. That's for sure.
Seriously.
But you were talking about your management.
My A1Cs.
When you were younger,
yeah.
your A1Cs were where they were. I was wondering, is there, looking back, regular and MPH, was there any way to really affect it? Like, how could you have affected it back then? I mean, you had a meter, right? But you didn't use it very frequently, if at all. It probably wasn't super accurate.
I mean, when I was a young kid, it was better because I was more under my parents' watch. But once I turned like 13 and I was pretty much on my own, my checking got a little more lax. But with regular and NPH, really, it was dose, eat at the right time, dose again, eat at the right time. So there's not a lot of tweaking you can do with that system. It's meant to keep you alive. It's really not meant to
manage down numbers and stuff like that. Yeah, like you can now. How so when you were speaking about college, it was interesting. You said something that kind of flared my head a little bit. You said that you would think, oh, I drank beer, so my blood sugar's high, so I'll just give myself insulin, but would eventually lead to checking. So you had to check, but you were swapping checking to make a good decision for checking to save your life when you could have just, like, it reminded me of sleep. Do you ever know somebody who can't sleep on a schedule, and you say they're always tired and they're sleeping in, and you say, look, if you just went to bed 4 hours earlier, you'd get up 4 hours earlier, your life would be on the process of the sun, the way your brain's meant to be, and you'd feel better, and etc. It all makes this, it's not like you have to be at a job at 1 o'clock in the morning. You're just physically making the decision not to go to sleep. Just slide the clock a different way and start over. And similarly, had you just moved the blood sugar check to where it would have been helpful for you, none of this all would have happened. And you're a bright person. So my question is why does that not, I don't mean just for you. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Why does that not happen?
I think it would be like, well, I've already messed up this blood sugar. Might as well just lean into it and see if I can maybe fix it later and hope for the best. Because it was very much I don't want to know if I'm high. So I'm just going to ignore it.
But eventually you'll be high and then you'll have to know.
Yeah. I mean, eventually you'll know just from the way you feel. But of course, as your blood sugar stays elevated, you get a little more used to it being elevated. So, you feel fine, but you're not fine.
You're perfectly describing dieting. Seriously, like, you get up in the morning and you're like, this morning I'm going to have 2 eggs and a half a piece of rye toast and a cup of coffee, and I'm going to get myself together. Makes
waffles, and then you're like,
you take a bite, you're like, well, hell, if I'm going to have a bite, I might as well have 3 waffles. Somehow that's the leap,
Right. It's very much that, I don't know. I think there's some kind of folly or something that has an actual name, but I forget what it is. But it's very much of well, I already messed up this one time. Might as well just lean into it.
I'm trying to figure out what part of the brain lights up for that, because it's the same thing, right? Like, so now that I've had the waffles, when lunch comes, I'm not going to have, a watercress sandwich with tuna, right? So now I'm like, I ate waffles this morning, so we should probably get pizza. And then, you get pizza, and then you're like popping candy in the afternoon. Then you don't feel well, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't eat like that. And then, I'm going to get up tomorrow and do better. Over. Yeah, and then in the morning, you're like, oh, what is it? 2 eggs. I'm going to poach them, I think, this time. Little rye toast, blah, blah, blah. Kid comes running through the room with those little muffins that come in the package that aren't food. Yeah. And you're like, oh, those things are great. You're popping them in your mouth. And the next thing you know, you weigh 65 pounds more than you mean to.
Right.
So seriously, I think it's the same thing.
It's probably very similar. It's just it really is well, I already messed this up, instead of just trying to deal with it and fix it. And as as a kid, like no one likes to see that your blood sugar's high, because especially, I don't know if it's just I feel like the attitude has definitely shifted from when I was younger, but it was very much that blood sugar is bad, and it means you're not doing, it means you're doing bad with your diabetes. And it was very much not okay, this is the number, let's fix it and move on.
Okay.
Which I think is a much better approach.
Yeah.
Not to assign good or bad to a number. It's just, here's the data, use the data, and then move on with your life.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm starting to see, like more like in the chats and like the, when someone says like, oh, what's the best piece of advice? Everyone goes, don't assign a moral value to a number.
Right. Well, it's also interesting because you're talking about social media. I also think that social media draws in people who are in a certain part of the process too.
Yeah. So that has always been my issue with like joining some of the diabetic groups, because you see, you also, and a lot of times it's like the same thing with like Yelp. People rarely write a good review because they had a great time. They want to write a bad review so everyone knows that they had a horrible time at your favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
The people posting online are a lot of times they're in a bad place, or they're not taking care of their diabetes, or they're just so new and confused. It's just a lot of negativity sometimes.
But it's not even the people, it's their situation. Right. And so that's why, I mean, seriously.
And then sometimes I feel like it comes across as judgmental, but you see like people's graphs and they're like, I was 100% in range. And I was like, yeah, but your blood sugar still went to 200, but your in range goes up to 250. Like, why is it so high? You should lower that sucker down.
See, that's their first step. Their first step is I picked a range, I stayed in it, and then you hope that their next step is to tighten
to lower the range. Yeah.
Right.
And then and then you get the responses, well, I don't want the Dexcom beeping at me. It's like, well, but that's what it's for.
That's the whole point of it.
It should beep at you because if you don't get high, you don't get high.
Yeah. My carbon monoxide detector woke us up last night.
Won't stop beeping.
It won't stop beeping.
I should take the batteries out.
By the way, the cat's dead. So I wonder what that's about.
Why are all the birds dead? And why am I hallucinating?
Yeah. So how did you fix it? Well, we threw out the carbon monoxide detector. It was terrible. It just wouldn't stop beeping. No, it's interesting because if you talk to me or other people who've been around for a really, really long time, it just cycles, online cycles and cycles. And I will have conversations with people and I'll see them pop up in different threads. And then one day, 5-6 months later, they're just gone. Like you'll see them talk about how good their blood sugars are. And then they'll realize like, I can go live my life again. Good. Yeah. And I think that's really amazing. But it's hard to remember that in the moment, because at some point when you've heard your 9 millionth person make the same complaint, it takes a special person to go, hey, that's okay, and start from scratch. And I am literally calling myself a special person in this situation because
I am the most special.
Well, at least close to the bestest. And just because I have the temperament to not feel like, oh, why do these people? Because I realize these people, quote unquote, are not the same people from yesterday. And but sometimes that doesn't happen. You can see when people reach their social media tipping point because they conflate everyone together into, like one person.
But yeah, for me, it was just it was more negativity than I wanted to deal with. And I don't know if this was because how I was raised, but a lot of, oh, woe is me, this is the worst. Like, I'm not saying that diabetes doesn't suck, because it does. If I had the option, I would totally go, like, be on the experimental trial for a cure, right? Or if if I could go back, or if like a genie would pop up and say like, what's your one wish? I'd be like, get rid of type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Like I would totally do that. But once you it really is okay. I still have days where something throws me off, or I get a little sick and like I'm floating in the 150s, 160s all day. So then I don't feel so great. Or, I have Thai food and misjudged it and now I'm at 220. Like, it definitely happens, but those are fewer and further between than when I was a kid.
I think that's completely possible to manage and to get to. I really do.
Yeah. It's like, I can't spontaneously just be like, I'm going to go to this place for a week. Like, no, I have to pack insulin and I have to pack my pump supplies. But I mean, you have to pack underwear for a trip. It's the same thing.
It's all in the way you see it. And plus, those people didn't have your dad who was like, hey, look, you're going to do this by yourself.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's like sometimes I read like how, like, sometimes I hear like how involved you are with Arden. And I'm like, I think it's great. But at the same time, in the back of my head, like, if Scott was like, if he had to get surgery for a day, right, and he couldn't answer, like, would she be okay?
Yeah, she'd
like,
be
could
fine.
she handle it?
Yeah, she'd be fine.
I'm sure, because I'm sure you're teaching her as like you're helping her, with hey, we should give this. But it's all of that. Well, she's gonna leave the house in not too long, and she's gonna go to middle of nowhere Kentucky, where there's not going to be a good Wi-Fi signal. And
exactly. Yeah. So, all right, Kentucky, get better Wi-Fi in case my kid wants to go to college there. That's really step one. All right. Well, Phoebe, you were really delightful. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
I had a really good time. I liked when I said we're coming up on time, and you were like, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh, that's good news," because you weren't sitting over there going, "Oh my god, this is taking forever."
So
No, you're chatty. You were very chatty, which is perfect, by the way.
Which is great for a podcast.
Really, yeah. There's been a couple of people over the years who were just, I'm like, please say more words, please. I'm running out of to say. You got to say something.
There's a lot of dead space, Kai.
When I start running out of words, you're in trouble because I can talk forever. So
true.
Oh, cool. Well, seriously, thank you so much. First, I want to thank Phoebe because she was terrific. And then I want to thank the Contour Next One blood glucose meter because it's terrific. And you can find out more about how terrific it is at contournext.com/juicebox. And to my longest standing sponsor, Omnipod. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Find out if you're eligible for that free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash at omnipod.com/juicebox. There are links to these and all of the sponsors at juiceboxpodcast.com or right there in the show notes of your podcast player. Are you not listening in a podcast player? You should be. It's a really easy way and free way to listen. And of course, wait a minute. I'll just let the music drift off here. If you're looking for a way to support the show, it's simple. Share it with someone who you think might be interested. Subscribe in the app you're listening in, or follow. Like if you're in Spotify, follow. If you're in Apple Music, I think or if you're in Apple Podcast, I think that's follow now. Some of them are subscribe. Just subscribe or follow. Subscribe or follow. Tell somebody about the show. Leave a great review wherever you listen. These things would be incredibly helpful. And if you'd like to join up with other listeners and talk about diabetes, there's a Juicebox Podcast private Facebook page that is there for you to use as you will. I believe 12,000 users right now and growing every day. Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. And of course, supporting the T1D Exchange by joining their registry and answering their quick survey also supports the show. And this ends the How to Support the Podcast portion of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.